At the center of the St. James School campus stands a tree, one of the oldest in Maryland and a symbol of strength and resilience. This popular tree in the senior circle has stood at the heart of campus for almost 400 years. It existed long before the dream of a St. James School.
The tulip poplar in the circle was cited as a large tree in the late 1700s.
The St. James poplar has many stories to tell, of warfare and fire, of students' lives and aspirations, of perseverance and resilience.
St. James throughout its history has always been challenged.
The Civil War and the fire and the Depression.
But there's this idea of the school must survive.
Each year, it is cared for from its roots to its tips so that it may thrive for centuries to come.
Its roots run deep, its foundations are strong, and it continues to be vibrant,
bringing comfort, strength, beauty, and inspiration to generations of students to follow, just as St. James School has done for the past 175 years.
St. James School's 175th anniversary, a school with an incredible history.
175 years of St. James. The school's been through so much.
Today, the things that stand out about St. James are its core values, its manners, and really a culture of respect. And I'd say that's been St. James's creed since the beginning.
I imagine students from 1842 would probably feel pretty comfortable here. It's still all about the students. Foundation remains morality. The way that we function, our personal interactions, just that general sense of community.
And when you really come to know the school's history, it's remained remarkably consistent, for 175 years.
St. James was founded by Bishop William Whittingham, who is the 4th Bishop of Maryland.
Bishop Whittingham was probably the most prominent American follower of the Catholic revival in the Church of England, and he was their American disciple.
Bishop Whittingham was highly educated, a leader, and a unifier who founded several schools and charities in addition to St. James School.
It was just sort of this idea of we want a school to educate young men to be, good Christians, good scholars, and, to sort of go off and sort of do good in the world.
When we go back and we look at the actual words of the founders, the idea of a moral place, the idea of, educating youth in a changing world.
And it was originally both a school and a college. In those days, you basically came up when you were 14, and you graduated when you were about 18 or 19, but by that time you were graduating from college.
This is Claggett Hall, the most iconic building on the St. James campus, although everything looked a little bit different 175 years ago.
When Bishop Whittingham wanted to found his school, the rector of St. John's Hagerstown said, well, there's this estate in Washington County with this beautiful building, and it was the Ringgold Estate.
It's very dignified, and the fields are lush, and all around you, these gorgeous trees.
It was a beautiful setting, it was secure, it was wholesome.
It's a visual overload in many ways. It's beautiful.
And so the diocese bought the building.
On October 2nd, 1842, the original manor at Fountain Rock, also known as Ringgold Manor, opened its doors as the College of St. James to 14 students.
Dr. John Barrett Kerfoot was named as St. James's first headmaster.
Kerfoot began as a very young headmaster with a lot of enthusiasm and vision for St. James. He was loved by his faculty, he was loved by his students. He had a real concern for them, he would reason with them.
If you read Kerfoot's diary, and if you read firsthand accounts, Kerfoot was, a good man. He worked with the students. He was pulled them aside when they were struggling with something.
Under Kerfoot's leadership, St. James School grew quickly.
The original Claggett Hall was, the mansion. And then they built Kemp as the first academic building.
Kerfoot raised $8,000 for a new building that served as classrooms, a dormitory, and a dining hall for 65 boys. We now know this building as Kemp Hall.
During the Civil War, the school was occupied by Union and Confederate troops and was impacted by the Battle of Antietam and the Battle of Gettysburg.
The Civil War was the school's first great test. You know, we're really just a few miles from Antietam battlefield, which was the bloodiest battle of the war.
There's this passage in Kerfoot's diary when he talks about being awakened by cannon fire. It was right next to us.
Armies are always on the move, literally coming right through St. James.
But the school survived it, and Kerfoot went down and nursed the wounded.
Headmaster Kerfoot was a Unionist and an abolitionist who worked hard to maintain peace on campus and to protect his students.
Many of the students are from the South, most of the faculty are from the North. John Barrett Kerfoot, to a certain degree, he had to walk a real tightrope.
That was a big theme with Dr. Kerfoot, that the boys should honor each other and that they should respect each other. And then it really did become, under Kerfoot, a model for the nation.
About 35 miles as the crow flies is Gettysburg, probably the most Titanic-sized battle of the war.
And then the Confederate Army retreated along the ridge just on the other side of our playing fields, and the scavengers basically looted the school.
By 1864, you know, the fighting around campus had done some damage. The number of students enrolled had declined. No one wanted to send their child into the middle of a war zone, and he decided that this just was no longer the time. However, there was always this idea of this is a wonderful school, you know, that we're, you know, training godly men. So while the school closed, the idea of the school still resonated with so many people.
It took Bishop Whittingham considerable time to repair the damages to the school following the Civil War. But the foundation and spirit of St. James were strong, and once again, the school persevered. In 1869, St. James reopened with its second headmaster, Henry ONDERDONK, who would hold the position for the next 27 years.
He has to start the school up again, reorganize buildings, reorganize curriculum, and it would just be now a prep school.
And so that's when the College of St. James became St. James School. Because when you think about it, that was being faithful to Kerfoot's vision. He was more interested in raising young people and their kind of spiritual nurture and their goodness than he was in, you know, building a great academic institution.
The original Claggett Hall was remodeled, was updated. He would also lay the foundations and begin to establish what was sort of a gymnasium area with a pool. Other buildings around campus would be remodeled. Rich Cottage, that would be, you know, made into a faculty home. A library was established.
The library is one of my favorite places on campus. It's where I study after class and at night if I have a big test the next day. The library has always been important to St. James School. By 1893, the St. James School Library held over 11,000 volumes.
So the school really was undergoing this rebirth. And Henry ONDERDONK, in a sense, he was that second birth of the school.
I'm proud to play for a team with so much tradition. It's amazing that St. James has had football for over 100 years now.
The first St. James School football team was organized in 1894, although the first game didn't go so well.
Athletics have been an important part of St. James School for over 100 years because we feel that it teaches our students something they can't learn in the classroom. The value of always doing their best, working to excel, figuring out how to work together and looking inside themselves. You know, that resilience of pushing through and coming out better on the other side for it.
In 1903, the ONDERDONK legacy continued when Henry ONDERDONK's son, ADRIAN, became the 5th headmaster of St. James. ADRIAN emphasized the importance of manners, courtesy, and mutual respect. These are core values that continue to be instilled in St. James students today.
The younger Mr. ONDERDONK became headmaster in the early 20th century, and he would be around, you know, for almost 40 years.
And he was extraordinary. He was, like Kerfoot, one of those great leaders, and very highly regarded by other headmasters.
The rich choral tradition at St. James School officially began in 1919 with the school's first vested choir. And St. James students have been singing proudly ever since. One of my favorite things about St. James School is our amazing choir. Every day I get to sing with my best friends, and together we've traveled the world to perform and sing for people.
In 1920, the formation of the Mask and Wig Club set the stage for a long and rich theatrical tradition, marking an important and memorable addition to the fine arts program at St. James School. Kick it off, Noel.
Do.
Mi.
Sol.
Do. 28 years later, during the school production of Our Town, the theater group was named the Mummers Society, the name by which we're still known today.
Adrian ONDERDONK carried on the wonderful ONDERDONK family tradition and was responsible for the physical expansion of the campus.
It was a real period of growth and construction here at St. James School, and he was the one who shepherded that through.
The Laidlaw Infirmary was added in 1928.
In 1930, the Carter Memorial Gate was built, creating this picture-perfect entryway to our campus that has welcomed students ever since. This is my favorite view of St. James School and the picture I will forever carry in my heart when I leave.
Adrian ONDERDONK, he really came in and builds buildings and a gym and a new rectory for the rector.
And, you know, he continues to build the school, but a couple of great crises that he was confronted with. Claggett Hall, the main building, burns to the ground completely. And that needs to be rebuilt.
These are the senior steps. They were the only part of Claggett left standing after a devastating fire destroyed the building in 1926. In an act of perseverance, demonstrated time and again in the school's extraordinary journey, a new Claggett Hall, the beautiful, iconic building that you see today, opened in 1927.
They rebuilt Claggett on the foundation of the original Claggett, so the students still graduate from the same steps they graduated from in the 1800s.
And then 1929, 1930, the Great Depression. The school's finances were destroyed when the bank closed, not unlike over 3,000 banks around the United States. And supposedly the business manager took off with a lot of the school's cash.
Those were his three great crises, and that was extraordinary for him to deal with.
It's kind of interesting how the school seems to just sort of knock down and gets back up, knocks down and gets back up.
Again, that same theme of resilience, of staying focused on mission and not losing heart, and the school survived that as well.
In 1955, Reverend John Owens was named the 8th headmaster of St. James School. He was highly revered for all that he contributed during his tenure.
Father Owens was a very compelling figure, hero of the Second World War, very devout, very quiet, very respectful.
Father Owens has a tremendous imprint on the school as this war hero priest who really cared about the goodness of his students and greatly revered and admired by them.
In the year 1976, Jimmy Carter became the 39th President of the United States. A gallon of gas cost 59 cents, and girls were able to enroll at St. James for the first time in the school's history.
When Father Owens made the decision, it was, not uncommon, but for a school which was traditional, it was also a bold move.
It was the right thing to do, and he was responding to what particular families asked him to do. His advice to me, I remember when I became headmaster, was don't worry whether it's popular or not, just worry whether it's right or wrong.
And the first graduating class in 1981 included 5 girls, which was pretty exciting.
Father Owens, too, was a great builder. The Cotton Gym, Mattingly Hall, a number of faculty houses, Powell Hall, the chapel, all just sort of going on instinct, following his gut, so to speak.
Father Owens, because of his experience in World War II, was very anxious that we have an exchange student from England, an exchange student from Germany, an exchange student from Japan. Father Owens also welcomed the first Native American and the first black student. But again, not in a grandstanding, we're going to be ahead of the market as a school kind of way.
All you have to do is just witness our refectory or the chapel in the morning. For the first time, fewer than 50% of our students are identifying themselves as Caucasian.
We had a study recently where they said we were perhaps the most diverse private school in Maryland, but kind of blissfully unaware of it.
So when we look back at, the school in 1842 and then through the troubles of the Civil War, I think the headmaster at the time would probably be, that's what we were aiming for. That's what we were striving for.
Father Owens had a wonderful phrase. We believe that all things come from the altar of God. We're all in there together. Everybody's welcomed. Everybody's important. The wider variety and the different backgrounds, all of that just makes it more heavenly on earth.
In 1992, St. James School celebrated its 150th anniversary. Father Dunham became the 10th headmaster, ushering in the modern era of St. James, and it was all before my time.
The history of the school really did draw me to the school, and I really was excited to come to a school that wanted me to be both a priest and a headmaster, and would want me to run the school with a moral purpose.
I think Father Dunham has played a role in St. James, not unlike John Barrett Kerfoot, Mr. Underdonk, Father Owens. And I think it's interesting how he, in a sense, rebuilt the school again. The Owens Library, the 2 girls' dorms. Once again, that idea of making St. James a fully co-educational school.
Under the leadership of Father Dunham, the role of girls and young women has absolutely grown.
I wanted to improve their experience at school, and the way to do that was to have more. And if we're going to be a co-ed school, we need to be a good one.
Under Father Dunham's tenure, girls became boarders and competitive athletes, putting us on equal footing with male students and earning us a prominent place in the school's history. St. James students elected their first female senior prefect in 1999 and again in 2001 and 2002. How about that for a new tradition?
1, 2, 3, let's go, ladies! Woo!
Let's do it this way.
Father Dunham's philosophy is that the students really should see the world through lots of lenses. You must expand your horizons in athletics, you must expand your horizons in the arts.
The arts department specifically, it's just grown and grown and grown.
It keeps you productively busy. It's an exercise of the heart and the mind. It's an introduction to beauty and poetry and rhythm.
Every year there's more and more kids excited about the arts, and this is something that is not common everywhere.
How would we compare and contrast?
I also focused on the academic strength of the school.
No, it's the next one.
I don't want it all about the college placement, but I want the college placement to be very good. And I want St. James to pursue that quality in all our areas, with more and more success.
I
can think of no better name for our school.
What Father Dunham has brought is that he's made St. James a school of great excellence in terms of the arts, athletics, and academics. To not come to St. James and just say, this is what I do, to come to St. James and broaden your horizons.
Continue to form that broad notion of what the world means. That's the world I think Father Dunham wants us to see.
But not in a way that jeopardizes that incarnational mission. All about community and morality and honor and service and goodness. Every headmaster wants to leave St. James stronger than it is now, and I still have more work to do. We have a plan now to build a new fine arts center, and it's truly beautiful.
I just think it's a beautiful tribute to have this amazing building being built at the same time as the 175th anniversary.
I think we've got 2 buildings that we need to build now, possibly a 3rd, and we do need to grow the endowment so that we have more financial aid resources going forward.
Happy 175th anniversary, St. James School.
Happy 175th anniversary, St. James School.
Happy 175th birthday, St. James.
Happy 175th anniversary, St. James! Woo!
St. James, just keep doing what you do.
Thank you for 25 years and for giving me so many friends and such wonderful children and a real purpose in my life. I couldn't be more grateful.